Theoretically speaking, playing the trumpet is just inhaling and exhaling. That's why breathing exercises are so important. And you have picked some you would like to show us today.
Of course, breathing exercises are part of our practice, and there's a huge variety of exercises you can find in books and videos. I've picked out a couple that represent different types of breathing exercises, and of course they can be varied according to your own preference. In general, I think we should be aware that breathing exercises require certain prerequisites in order to be effective and useful. The first important prerequisite is we need to be mentally present and have a good awareness of our bodies, good posture, in order to have breathing exercises have an effect. We should try, while intensely working on air exchange, to not have the sound of our breathing get anywhere near a hiss or related to resistance. Instead, it should always be unrestrained and relaxed. It's also extremely important to observe what's going on, what's changing. Some space is being opened up. Maybe this is a process that invokes a little more softness in us. All these differences need to be registered and handled well in order to find out where exactly I'm making mistakes. Lastly, and maybe this is a bit of truism, but it's definitely not wrong to repeat it every now and then, breathing exercises can only work when they're performed regularly. It's not a process that enables us to say, okay, I'll do intense breathing exercises for a week, and then I'll have learned it all. It's a long-lasting process that requires us to practice daily. You don't have to do it for very long either. 5 to 10 minutes are enough, and it's this regularity that makes us truly internalize the exercise. It's experience that we really need. To start off, we'll do an exercise that maybe isn't a real breathing exercise, but that will equip us with the right prerequisites to be able to do breathing exercises properly. I simply call it a light exercise. It's a kind of awareness exercise for the body, so we can learn to perceive what's going on inside us. To start off, we're going to stand in a relaxed way. We don't need a chair. Our feet are shoulder or hip width apart. If you want to, you can close your eyes in order to get a better connection with yourself. First, we'll feel our contact with the floor. How are our feet in contact with the floor? You can roll back and forth a little in order to feel it. Put some weight on the balls, the heel, the inner side, the outer side. Just observe and perceive. Now we're going to imagine this. There are roots growing from our feet into the ground, so we're connected even more firmly and intensely, and so we can feel this grounding. Roots like that of a tree that is grounded in the earth. Next, we're going to try and fill our whole body with light in our imagination, as if it was intervened with rays of light, just like the figures on your Christmas lights. We start with the feet, fill them with white light. Then we travel upwards through our shins that fill with light, to the knees. Let's stay with the knees for a second. Check them. Are they locked or are they soft? Do they give a little and are open so the light can actually spread through them, through the thighs, up to our hips, and to our pelvis? Here, the light is going to spread out like in a big basin, forwards, backwards, and to all sides. Now we're going to travel further up the spine, tailbone, lumbar vertebrae. The light spreads further over your thorax, your neck, until we reach the uppermost vertebrae, the atlas. Here, your skull sits loosely, almost floats like a ball dancing on a fountain of water. Now we have a connection reaching from the top of our head through the spine, pelvis, and legs all the way to the feet. A single connection all the way to our rooting, our grounding that connects us to the floor. Now when we inhale, we're going to imagine drawing the air through those roots, through the floor, to have it flow through our legs, gather it around our pelvis, and to then exhale it through the tunnel of light in our spine and out through our mouth. Inhale, suck in, gather, exhale straight through the tunnel of light. Then inhale again, gather, exhale, let it flow. One last time. Inhale, gather, exhale. Let it flow through the tunnel of light. Now open your eyes and let the feeling resonate. This is a kind of exercise that also prepares us for this focused physical and mental presence. It prepares us to feel whatever we do in the moment. It will be a slightly different experience for everyone, and it's an exercise that, if we do it over and over again, will become very familiar to us. It's an exercise you can also use when you feel stressed, like when you're on stage. Like I said, the light is similar to the light that illuminates your Christmas lights. So once we're familiar with the exercise, we can really imagine flicking a switch and the light is there and we are present. This is why it really pays off to practice this, to become familiar with it and to be able to access it whenever. It's a prerequisite to prepare your posture and your physical awareness for correct breathing. The next aspect that might be really important, because we often play and work sitting down, is to also retain this good posture and good physical awareness while sat down. Most importantly, our upper body that needs to create that space and that position that we have naturally when standing up must not lose it when we sit down. This small exercise can help. We place the back of our hands on the lower arch of our spine. Our spine is shaped a little like an S. Now, when we sit down, the upper body should stay in this upright position. We can check this with our hand. Are we rounding our back or not? Now we just need to bend at our hips and knees and to let ourselves sink down, like an elevator that's descending. We can feel when that's happening immediately. This space is what we need to breathe. When sitting down like this, we can try as hard as we want. It just won't work. When sitting like this, we can also feel our tailbones that enable this upright position. This should really always happen because of an internal awareness, not due to external strain. Otherwise, we'll slip into this unnatural, military stretched posture that's a lot more stiff and cramped than natural and permeable. That's the best posture for playing well and freely. Of course, if you sit in rehearsal for 3 hours at a time, this might get a little uncomfortable, which is why we need the back of the chair sometimes. When sitting like this, we simply need to make sure that we're not just leaning back, but to really shuffle backward with our buttocks so we can keep up the straight posture. We can then use the back of the chair, depending on how the chair is built ergonomically, in order to sit actively. It's important to be aware of this, because otherwise we're constantly creating restrictions for ourselves, which lead us to not being able to do our breathing exercises properly. The first exercise is a very simple one that just shows us how breathing should be regular. We reach out our hand and try to imagine that we're able to suck in this spaghetti noodle. As preparation, we open up our air passages and spaces for breathing like we're yawning. Now we inhale in 5 beats, then exhale in 5, while trying to take in and release the air as regularly as possible. I'll count to 5 once and then we'll start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale again. We're actually going to try not to stop at all. Of course, you can take a little break when breathing, that's not a problem. But for this exercise, let's just try to keep breathing. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. Regularly exhale. Try to figure out how to keep filling your lungs regularly until the end, and to inhale as much air as possible without taking in too much.
Und 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, aus, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, aus, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's a very simple exercise, but you still need to pay a lot of attention in order to keep your breathing regular. You can also tell quite easily when you're doing too much or too little, or if there's too much tension. So it helps to prepare you for being able to breathe more freely. Another type of exercise is one where we don't only challenge the regularity, but also the activity of the apparatus a little more. We inhale and exhale in 3 parts. And these 3 parts should be as equal as possible so that the last part still contains as much air as the first one did. You might need a little time to experiment with this, and I can count for you again. 1/3 in, another third, the last part of the inhale. 1/3 out, another third, exhale fully. In, 2, 3, out. 2.
Ganz aus.
A little faster. Stay regular though, don't get jerky.
Jetzt ganz ohne Stopp.
Don't pause in between the thirds, but still be aware of the 3 steps.
Teile zu finden. Und Schluss.
Of course, you need to always make sure to take breaks when necessary, because breathing this intensely can easily lead to hyperventilation. Take breaks and don't overdo it. It's very important to protect ourselves like that. Now we can add a little variation to this exercise. I'll call out how we're going to breathe in random order. 1/3 in, all the way in, 1/3 out, all the way out, 1/3 in, another third in, last third in, 2/3 out, 1/3 in, and so on. Call it out while at the same time keeping up with the breathing. Okay, let's go. All the way in, 1/3 out. All the way in, 2/3 out. 1/3 in, all the way out. 1/3 in, 1/3 in, all the way in, all the way out. 1/3 in, all the way out. 1/3 in, another third in, 1/3 out. 1/3 in, 1/3 out, all the way out. All the way in, 1/3 out. All the way in, all the way out. 1/3 in, 1/3 in, all the way out. 2/3 in, 1/3 in, 1/3 out, all the way out. 1/3 in, and all the way out.
Okay.
It's like a little game where you have to be very active but still be attentive the entire time. In practice, it's often the case that we only get a very short moment to breathe, so we need to be able to utilize these breathing breaks as efficiently as possible. In order to do so, there exist breathing exercises in rhythmic patterns that we'll demonstrate now. A metronome can be useful for this to make sure the beat really is completely regular. We'll start with the 4/4 time. We'll inhale for 1/4 note, then exhale for 3/4 with articulation. For the 4th quarter note, we inhale again. Very simple. What's important is just to exhale an equal amount of air for each quarter note and to keep exhaling actively all the way until the end, until we inhale again. Don't try to prepare for inhaling while you're still exhaling, okay? 1, 2, 3. You can also count out loud if you want to. Don't repeat this too many times or you will start hyperventilating. Have a little break. We're retaining the tempo, but do the same exercise with 8 notes. This means we're exhaling for 7/8 and only inhale for 1. Keep trying to find that awareness, to really perceive that moment of inhalation. Don't try to force it, and also don't try to prepare because you think, I have to breathe quickly now. Really experience the moment the breathing is really happening. To start with, we're going to inhale for a quarter note, just to have enough air, then exhale for 7/8. Inhale 1/8. 1, 2, 3.
Okay?
You might notice while doing this exercise that you want to breathe more quickly than you need. You'll start to notice, technically, I can be more calm, have more time, despite the shorter 8-note break. Exactly this observation gains more importance now when we start working with semiquavers. Now our break where we have time to breathe is really short. So we should aim to use it as freely and actively as possible so that we can take in as much air as we can. Of course, we won't be able to inhale fully, but if we breathe freely, we can still take in enough air. To make it more easy, we're going to pick a 3/4 time, otherwise it's going to be exhausting in the beginning. This means we're going to inhale up until the last 16th, then inhale for 1/16. Give yourself a full quarter for the first intake of breath again, please. I'm going to demonstrate this so the pattern becomes obvious. Really try not to breathe too jerkily. 1, 2. And exhale freely right until the end.
Bereiten.
Really release the air as a steady flow. Don't inhale too hurriedly. Only do this in short bursts. We don't want to collapse because we get too dizzy. It's better to take some breaks and maybe do a couple more rounds instead. These rhythmic breathing exercises are very relevant for our practice. And if you get something like this in a piece you're playing, you can actually do them to clarify and train this perception of the breathing process. Lastly, we're going to do an exercise that's a little different, but that will help us to calm down and to get in touch with ourselves. What is our breath doing inside our body? How does the body react to our breath? What happens in our body? But especially, how can we mentally accept this calm and regularity? We're going to sit down for this. It's a breathing exercise some of you may know from yoga, and it's called alternate nostril breathing. We're going to start off by doing a simple version where we alternate the nostril we inhale through, observe the breathing, pause very briefly, and then exhale through the other nostril. Observe the breathing, pause very briefly, and then exhale through the other nostril. Then we inhale again through the nostril we've just exhaled through, and exhale through the other. To do this, we need our right hand. Pinky and ring finger close and open the left nostril. Our thumb closes and opens the right. These two fingers can either rest on the forehead or just rest on the hand. What's important, using these two fingers to open and close our nostrils, we can, when exhaling, not when inhaling at the beginning, regulate the flow of breath by gently closing and opening a nostril more or less, and thus drawing out the exhale longer and longer so we achieve greater regularity. Let's start. At first, check how it feels to move and thus open and close your nostrils. Now, we're going to close the right nostril with our thumb and inhale regularly through the left. Short pause. Now close the left, open right, exhale. Inhale right. Close both, short pause, open left, exhale. Close both, exhale right. You can do this for 5 to 10 minutes. 5 minutes might be better to start off with. You'll notice that at first, you have to pay a lot of attention to what you're doing, but eventually it'll become more automatic, and you'll be able to focus entirely on the flow of your breath. You can experiment with the duration of the in and exhale. Feel how your breath and energy spreads through your body. It's also called cleansing breath. You cleanse your airways. But I think what's also very important is this calming and collecting effect the exercise has. That's why it's very useful, for example, to prepare for a performance. It helps to just collect yourself so you can get onto the stage full of clarity and energy. It's a great possibility. There's a process many people underestimate when leaving your busy life to come into the practice room and begin practicing. Sometimes it will take you a good 10 minutes until you actually realize, oh yes, this is practice. In reality, the entire mind and body was still preoccupied with your busy life, and already you'll have started off on a bad note. This exercise is great for that also. 2 or 3 minutes are enough to just make sure you're really present in your practice so you can begin. It creates a good premise enabling you to complete your work, being more concentrated, effective, attentive, and hopefully better as a result.